JD Vance adjusted his microphone and spoke, quietly, yet not quietly enough. "Go back to the zoo." That was all. 6 words. 6 words that didn't just taint the moment, they exploded it. Because the room heard it. The audio captured it. And Jasmine Crockett? She didn't blink. She didn't flinch. She simply paused. You're witnessing power shift unfold in real time. And if you're here for the truth, smash like, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe. Because this moment, it altered everything. It was 9:03 a.m. in the Rayburn House Office Building, room 2141, a federal hearing on sentencing reform. What should have been another sluggish bureaucratic discussion turned the second JD Vance began speaking. It was clear something different was coming. Crockett sat toward the end of the panel, notes spread before her, glasses resting low on her nose. She'd studied the data. She'd arrived prepared, not for theatrics, but for facts. Yet the moment he started talking about fatherlessness, cultural decay, and crime waves in urban America, you could sense it. The old script was in motion. Then came her turn. No smile, no pleasantries. "Senator Vance," she said, "you speak of protecting families, yet your record shows consistent opposition to sentencing reform. Reform that disproportionately impacts Black and Latino households. How do you reconcile that with your so-called values?" He didn't like that. You could see it. The clenched jaw, the tightening grip on the table. "With all due respect," he shot back, "you're conflating law enforcement with injustice. Crime isn't about color. Responsibility isn't a racial concept." Crockett's gaze sharpened. No smirk. No raised voice. "Right," she replied. "So when nearly identical cases in white counties get diversion, but black teens are locked up for life, you call that colorblind?" Vance had no answer, because there wasn't one, not without unraveling his entire argument. He shifted, cleared his throat. "There are socio-economic factors, yes, but turning this into a race war doesn't help." Crockett didn't glance down. "It's already about race, Senator. The data decided that long before I walked into this room." The silence that followed wasn't hollow. It was thick, heavy. Everyone present understood, this wasn't politics anymore. This was exposure. Crockett flipped a page in her binder. "Do you believe federal sentencing today reflects fairness?" Vance hesitated too long. "No system is perfect," he finally muttered. "That's not what I asked." More silence. More discomfort. "It's adequate," he mumbled. "Given the circumstances." Crockett nodded once, not in agreement, but acknowledgement. "That's not policy. That's evasion." Then came the moment. The insult. The words he hadn't planned but that simmered beneath his frustration. "Why don't you just go back to the zoo?" Not shouted. Not screamed. Muttered under his breath but not beyond the microphone's reach. And Jasmine Crockett? She heard it. She removed her glasses, set them gently on the table, and spoke the words that paralyzed the room. "Would you like to repeat that for the record?" No one moved. No one breathed. Because everyone knew what had just happened. Everyone heard what he'd said. And yet, she didn't interrupt. She didn't yell. She didn't perform. She just locked eyes with him and waited. Not for an apology. For accountability. He didn't respond. Not immediately. JD Vance sat rigid, shoulders tense, jaw locked, pretending the words weren't hanging in the air like smoke. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't moving on. "I'll ask again," she said, voice icy and firm. "Did you just tell me to go back to the zoo?" His eyes darted, left, right, toward aides, toward the chairman. No one spoke. Not even his staff. The room was frozen. He cleared his throat. "I don't think that's an appropriate line of questioning." Crockett leaned forward, deliberate. "Neither was your comment, Senator." But here we are. The atmosphere had shifted. What began as a routine hearing now felt like something else entirely, an unraveling, a reckoning. The chairman shifted uncomfortably. "Representative Crockett, let's stay focused." "I am focused," she replied, calm, still locked on Vance. "I'm focused on what happens when power masks hatred as policy. When a U.S. senator believes he can speak to a colleague as though she doesn't belong." The chairman exhaled. "Let's just keep this civil." "This is civil," Crockett countered. "What isn't civil is implying I'm less than human because I held you accountable. What isn't civil is reducing a black woman to an animal because she made you uncomfortable." Still, Vance said nothing. He wouldn't meet her eyes. He didn't deny it, didn't clarify, didn't apologize. He just sat there, staring through the desk as if it might swallow him. So Crockett continued, "Let me tell you something, Senator. I've been in rooms where people didn't want me. I've sat at tables where they pretended not to hear me. I've argued cases where my voice was cut off before I could finish a sentence. But not once did I let it shake who I am." Vance shifted again, still silent. "You want to talk about crime?" she pressed. "Let's talk about the crime of stolen opportunity, the crime of unequal schools, redlined neighborhoods, gutted healthcare, empty grocery shelves, and overcrowded jails. That's crime, Senator. And it didn't start in the streets. It started in rooms like this one." The chamber held its breath. The insult still echoed. But now it was her response that filled the space. "The problem isn't that you slipped up," Crockett said, The problem is that deep down, you didn't think it was a slip. That's what people need to understand. These moments don't come from nowhere. They come from a long history of unspoken assumptions, ones that go unchallenged. Vance finally looked up, just briefly. She didn't blink. "So let me be very clear," she said. "I'm not asking for your apology. I don't need your regret. I need the record to reflect exactly what happens when power operates without restraint. When authority sits so comfortably in its privilege that it believes it can degrade someone and move on like nothing happened." She turned to the chairman. "Mr. Chairman, I'd like the clerk to pull the transcript and isolate the senator's last comment for the official record." A quiet ripple moved through the room. Staffers exchanged glances. A reporter mouthed, "She's not letting this go." And she wasn't. Because this wasn't just about her. It was about every student told they didn't belong in advanced classes. Every young woman told to calm down in a courtroom when stating facts. Every voter whose voice was dismissed because of their zip code, their skin, their tone. She wasn't defending herself. She was defending all of them. "I'll yield when I'm finished," she said, eyes still on the chairman. "But I will not yield my dignity. Not today. Not in this room. Not to anyone." And still no sound from Vance. He'd shrunk visibly, hunched in his chair as if it might shield him. An aide whispered urgently, but he didn't respond. Because what was there to say? He hadn't been shouted down. He hadn't been humiliated. He'd simply been seen. And in this moment there was no escaping it.